Hey everybody, welcome to Home Recording Made Easy and Mix Tip Tuesday, where every Tuesday I show you a new mixing tip to help you make more professional sounding mixes in your home studio. Before we get to this week's tip, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. Make sure you hit that notification bell and also stick around till the end of the video, because at the end of the video I have something I want to give you absolutely free that's really going to help you with your mixing training, so be sure to stick around. Hey everybody, this week on Mix Tip Tuesday, we are going to do a setup of a mix, or I'm going to show you how I prep a mix, or a mix prep video. I get this question quite a bit, which surprises me because I think I've done things like this before. And if you've watched any of my training courses, if you're someone who's been following me for any length of time, you've seen me do this a bunch, but I do get some questions about it. I have gotten a couple of questions in the YouTube comments, so I thought this would be a good opportunity to kind of show you the basics of how I set up a mix. So what I've done here, and this could be done for any DAW, but we happen to be in Studio One here, and I've created a blank song, okay? And now when you create yourself a song file or a new session, and again, there's lots of videos on my channel showing you how to do that, but you get to this screen and we're going to go, well, how do we set up a mix? Well, step one, we're going to import our audio files. So again, every DAW is going to do this a little differently, but in Studio One, we come over to our browser, we navigate to where our stem files are, our audio files, and here are mine over here. I'm just going to hold down shift and use my arrow key to select all of them. And then I can simply just left click my mouse and I can drag them all in here on the track. So step one is import the audio. Pretty slick, right? Now, the second thing I do after I do that, before I'll let all the audio kind of fill up here. Great. Now, before I do anything else, first thing I want to do is I want to save. Now, again, in Studio One, you want to make sure that all these files that we just imported into this session, let's say they were sitting out on your desktop, you want these files to be copied to the session folder. And the reason why you want to do that is because if you don't do that, and you close this session and go open it tomorrow, and you have since deleted the stems or the audio files off your desktop and got rid of them because you thought, I don't need those there anymore, Studio One is going to be looking for that folder on your desktop. Now again, every DAW is going to do this a little different, but let me show you for Studio One users how to make sure that this feature is always activated so you never have to do it again. It's a global setting. If you come over to Studio One Preferences and you come over to the General tab, I think it's under General, or maybe it's under Locations. Under Locations, okay. Under Locations, under the User Data tab, you see this there's two things here that as a default are unchecked when you first install Studio One. You need to check these yourself. The first one I recommend is autosave documents, autosave the session, so if your computer crashes, every 5 minutes you can change it to whatever you want. But what you want to check here is ask to copy external files when saving the song. If this is unchecked, and this is how it comes as a default, when you save Studio One, it's not going to ask you to copy the files. It's going to be looking to the desktop in our example. You're going to close Studio One, delete those files off your desktop because you're going to think you don't need them anymore. You've already imported them into Studio One. The next day, you're going to go open up that session file. It's going to go, where are all the files? Okay. Make sure this is checked. Okay. Now, import your audio. First thing I do is hit save. Here's the box that comes up. It's asking me, do you want to copy these external files to the media folder? The answer to that question is 100% of the time, yes, in my opinion. And you will see that it's starting to copy all the external files. Now what this allows you to do is this now allows you to delete that file those stems that were on your desktop or wherever else you imported them from, and you never have to worry because, let me just show you this and then we'll get on to our mix prep. Now, inside of the folder that I created for this song, the media folder now has all those files, okay? If I didn't do that, the media folder would be empty, and therefore Studio One would not know where the audio files are if you deleted the original source. Does that make sense? So when you copied it into the media folder, and now Studio One is always going to look to the media folder. You could get rid of those files wherever you had them imported from, and you're going to be just fine. So that is important. So always do that. So that's the first thing I do. Import my audio and save it before I forget. Next step, want to make sure I have markers. If you don't have markers, click the little flag. You have start and end markers. In Cubase, you'll have a range tool. Pro Tools will be a little different. Every DAW is a little different. Start and end flag, so the start and end of the song. So when you export, you know, in other videos, you'll see that. Okay, third step is I color code my tracks. I organize them and I color code them in a color scheme that makes sense to me. Just so every single session is exactly the same. If you don't have a color scheme or an organizational scheme, you should come up with one. You could copy mine for now, and then you can do what you want. So what I do is I make sure that all of my drums are at the top, very first ones. That's what I like to do. So I can see here I have a snare track. I'm going to drag this to the top. Depending on how they're organized, I have overheads and a low tom. So I just hold shift, select both tracks, slide them up. Where's the high tom? We'll bring the high tom up in the drum area now. Guitars, keyboards, kick drum. Put that up here. I think that's it for drum tracks. So now I have my kick, my snare, my low tom, my high tom, and my overheads. I'm going to shift and I'm going to hold down shift and click and highlight them all. Now I'm going to color code my tracks. And again, I'm going to use the color coding scheme that's familiar to me. I always do my drums in brown. Why? I don't know, just do. Then next is my bass. I always make my bass, put it after my drums, and it's already there. I'm going to color code that blue because I like blue for my bass. Then I'll put my guitars. I'll look to see how many guitar tracks there are. There's a couple here. I think there's just two. Yep, two. So I'm going to highlight those two tracks and I color code my tracks green. Then I got any keyboards, horns, things of that nature I would put next. We have keys and horns. We actually have a sax track and a horns track. So again, I'm going to put those right after my guitars here. Okay, and I'm going to color code those kind of a light shade of purple or pinkish, whatever. Then I have my keyboard tracks. I have a keyboard DI track and I have a Leslie top and bottom mic for like a Leslie cabinet. I'm going to highlight those in, I don't know, maybe like a burgundy color. And then I have my 3 vocal tracks. I'm going to use my lead vocal first, then my 2 background vocals. Oh, keys vocals. Okay, that's a background vocal track. And I'm going to highlight those tracks yellow. So this is my basic color scheme. Brown drums, bass is always blue, guitars are always green, horns and keys are just different shades of purple, red, that kind of thing. And then lead vocals are always yellow. Okay, so I recommend that you come up with a color scheme that makes sense to you. Then I save it, just because I like to save as I go along. The next thing I do after that is I want to make sure that the track names rarely represent what's there. I can't tell you how many times I've get files and the snare track is really the kick track. So I solo it up. Well, let's just bring in our mixer here, make sure. Okay, so first and all other thing I like to do too at this point is just take all the tracks, highlight them, turn them down a little because they're usually way too hot and you don't want to blow your ears out. So I turn them down, and then I'll start with the first track, solo up the kick. Is it really a kick drum? Oops, let's see if it is. Sure is. This is a live recording, so you're going to hear some mic bleed. Okay, great. Now I'm going to do snare. Okay, good. Tom track. Now again, tom tracks are going to have bleed in there because depending on where does he hit the tom, how often does he hit the tom. So I'll expand it, come over to the end here where I see that he's hit the tom and just kind of cycle over it. Okay, we know that's a floor tom and that's what it is. Going to reorganize, put the high tom above it. Okay. Now I'm going to go to the high tom track and just listen to that quickly. He only hits the high tom a couple of times. Okay, those are tom tracks. And again, you may think this is foolish, but trust me, I can't tell you how many times people send me tracks and they mislabel them. All right, we're going to go to our overhead track. Sounds like overheads bass. Great, guitar 1. Okay, our guitar tracks sound good. Let's go to, where the horns are kind of playing. Let's see if we got horns. Great. Saxophone. Keyboards. Now the keyboards DI, where's the keyboards? Okay, that's only in the beginning of the song. So I just want to come back here. Okay, we have a DI track, then we have a Leslie track. Over here, let's just check the top and bottom Leslie mic, make sure that's correct. Sounds like it. Let's check our lead vocal. Backgrounds. Okay, they're all right. Wait, how about that? Okay, so I just double check. And now I go through and I just make sure I like the naming scheme that's been given to me. Again, depending on where you get your audio files from. So this will say Soul Man Kick, Soul Man. The name of the song is Soul Man, you know, the Soul Man cover. And it'll have the name of the song plus the instrument. And I don't like that because it makes the console view everything really scrunched up and I can't see. So I'm just going to go through and I'm just going to name, double click, I'm just going to name it kick snare. Now, also too, I want to make sure that I rename my events too. See how it says Soul Man Kick, Soul Man Snare? I want that to match my track name. Now, you don't have to do that. This is just what I do to keep things neat and organized. And then my OCD, I want to keep everything together. So I'm going to double click in here. I'm just going to name this kick. And then if I hold my shift key and hit enter, you'll see that not only does it change it here, but it also changes it as in the event name. See that? If I don't hold the shift key and I just go snare, whoops, spell it right, S-N-A-R-E. And if I don't hold the shift key and I just hit enter, you can see that the event didn't change. It still says Soul Man Snare. So I want to double click in here again, hold down my shift key, and now it changes. Cool, right? Hi Tom, so I'm going to go hi Tom, hold the shift key, low tom or floor tom, shift key, overheads. Okay, go through, name all the tracks the way you want. Now you can just leave it the way it was if you don't mind that, but again, I have a certain, okay, so we have two guitars, Ben guitar, guitar. So I'm going to name these guitar 1, guitar 2, GTR 1. Ben is the singer, GTR 2, doesn't matter to me which is which. Horns, sax, okay, keys, DI, and I'll leave the word DI so I know it was a direct in case I want to put a VST on it. Okay, Leslie cabinet, top and bottom, so I'll just put Leslie, TP for top. And then Leslie, BTM. Having a hard time typing today, guys. Bottom. Okay. We got a lead vocal, so I'm just going to put LD Vox. And then we have background vocals 1 and 2. So I'll put BGV1 and BGV2. Hold down my shift key. Oh, capital V. 2. Okay. So now all of my tracks names in the console view has been changed and also in the track view. Hit save. Okay, that cleans it up, makes everything nice and neat. And now I can read everything down here in the mixer view and everything's not jumbled together. The next thing I want to do is I want to set up my busing system. If you're going to use a busing system, and I do, where I will route all my drums to a drum bus, my bass to a bass bus, my guitars to a guitar bus, horns to a horn bus, keys to a keyboard bus, so on and so forth. Now, if you've already set up yourself a template, and if you go back and watch a couple of weeks back, go search the Mix Tip Tuesday folder. There is a video on how to create a template. So some of this stuff that I'm about to show you is already done for you every single mix. But if you did not see that video or you don't know how to make a template, go watch that. But I'm going to show you for now how to do it manually, which is pretty quick. So I'm going to highlight all my drums. I'm going to right click and I'm going to add a bus channel for selected tracks, and it's going to put it right next to the drums. Now I like to put mine all the way down to the right hand side. So I'm just going to left click and can I left click and drag it? Yes, I can. I'm going to drag it. Now, if you always want it to be all the way to the right of all your audio tracks, you can do that in Studio One. If you come over here to the left hand side, click on the options button, and there is a checkbox, keep bus channels to the right. Click that. Or keep effects channels to the right. You can check out all these things. Now when I do this, and I go bass bus, and I go add bass for selected channels, look where it puts it, right next to it. Okay, guitars, highlight my guitars. Okay, and there's other ways to do this, by the way. This is just one way to do it. You could do this several different ways. I'm just showing you one way. This is our horns bus, so we're gonna channel. Keyboards, we're going to use the DI and the Leslie tracks. Lead vocal I like to put on its own bus, and background vocals to a bus as well. And you may say, why do you put single channels to a bus? Why do you need to do that? Well, if you watch any of the mixing training videos and stuff, you see why I do that. That's not for this video. You don't have to do that. In other words, do you need to have a lead vocal bus track if it's only one single track? No, you don't. I just like it that way. So my bus channels are always going to be black, and I'm going to name these now. So I'm going to use drum bus, bass, bus. The next one is GTR. Oh, I'm really having a tough time typing today, maybe because it's so early in the morning. And then we have horn, bus, key, bus, lead vox, bus, background vocal, bus. Okay, so now I have all of that and everything is routed to it. Now my inputs are routed to, I'm not going to be doing any recording, so I'm also going to change all my inputs by holding down shift, highlighting all your tracks, and switching this to none, because I'm not doing any recording. I just want the outputs. As a default, if you have any inputs set up on your interface, it'll automatically put that to your inputs. Again, you don't have to do that. I just like to do that. Next step for me is now I'm going to create parallel compression tracks that I might use in my mix. You may say, what is that? What is that for? What do you mean? Go watch The Power of Parallel Compression, which is a course on homerecordingmadeeasy.com. You can check that out. You'll see what I mean about parallel compression. Or if you've watched any of my other mixing training courses, you see I do that a lot. So I'm going to set up some parallel compression buses. Again, you can do this as part of your template. If you make a template, again, go watch the video. I'll try to remember to link all this stuff down below, but if I forget, you know where to go look. So my parallel compression tracks are just going to mirror or mimic my bus tracks. That's how I like to do it. So if I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 buses, I'm also going to have 7 parallel tracks, and I like to put them to the right of my buses. So I can just, in an empty space over here, I can just right click at a bus channel. I'm going to make 7 of them. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you can see they're all right here. Buses 1 through bus 7. I like to change the color of this to a dark purple so I can keep them separate from the buses, and then I normally turn all these all the way down, okay? So they're not in the way. And then I name them. The first one's going to be, if I have a drum bus, the first one's going to be parallel compression for drums. I call it P drums. P for parallel compression. The next one is going to be P bass. The next one is going to be P horns. Next one, P key, P lead vox, P background vocals. Did I do that right? Am I missing one? Drums, bass. Oh, I forgot my guitars. Sorry, got to go back in there. P guitar. Then it's P horns, P keys, P lead vox, P background vocal. Okay, so now I have all of those the way I want to have those. Okay, so that's all set. Okay, the next thing I like to do after that is now I'm going to close I'm going to save this. I'm going to close my mixer here. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to do what I call cleaning my tracks. A couple of things you do when you clean tracks, and I'm not going to show you in detail as an effort to keep this video short, but I'm going to explain to you what I do. So the first thing I do on things like tom tracks, drum toms. Remember I said a few minutes ago, he only hits the toms at certain places during the song. If I solo this up, the rest of this is going to all be bleed from the other microphones. And that's not turned up very much. Remember, I turned on all the tracks. If I were to turn up that track to unity, hear all that bleed? And all the rumble, I want to get rid of all of that. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. Now, some people will use a gate plugin. I don't particularly like gates. I like to manually go in and clean it. First thing I like to do is zoom in on the audio a little bit so I can make sure I see where the hits are and I can also distinguish where the bleed is. Now, sometimes he may not have a real strong hit where it's really obvious, like over here. Okay, that's a snare hit. You would have thought that might be a tom hit. So you want to make sure, but over here, I believe this is a tom hit. Right there. Okay, so you're going to go through, you're going to listen, and before and after the hits, you are going to delete the bleed. Okay, so I listen over here. Okay, that's all. Okay, so it looks like the first hit he makes is right here. So I'm going to take my blade tool, I'm going to cut this, and I'm going to get rid of all that bleed. I'm going to come up to right before the hit, and then right after the tom hit, right before the next hit, I'm going to put a cut here. I'm going to come over here to where he had that kind of that little minor hit there that we thought might be a snare hit, but we listened to it. And those are tom hits. And I'm going to put a cut here. And I'm going to go through the entire track. Here's the next hit. Some of them are really obvious. Some are not. Okay, and you're going to go through the entire song, and I'm going to get rid of all of the bleed. And then what's going to happen is this thing is going to be chopped up into many different audio slices like you see here. Going to be in all these little slices. Now what I like to do, and you can just leave it like that and have all the dead space between all the different cuts, and that's fine. But then you can inadvertently nudge one of these out of place by accident. So what you're going to do, and I'm going to show you, if I had a bunch of cuts in here, just random cuts, okay? And now I have a bunch of events, including these two. I'm going to highlight them all. Okay, so they're all highlighted. I'm going to right click, or I'm going to use Command or Windows key B for bounce. And watch what happens. It bounces it to one block of audio. And if you notice where we cut out all that dead space, it just fills it in with no audio. Okay, so this is a way to clean up your tom tracks. You only have the tom hits and that you have one big chunk of audio, one event, so you can't inadvertently nudge it out of place. I do that for the tom, rack toms, the floor toms. Kick, snare, not so much. Overheads, not so much. Other instruments that you want to look at where maybe like horns, not so much guitars. There's going to be bleed from the guitars. There's nothing you could do about that. But things like horns where there's lots of gaps between the horn parts, right here, all this stuff, because you don't want all that bleeding into your final mix. When you do that across 6 or 8 different tracks in a song, it makes the mix really muddy. So same thing. Now, instead of using the blade tool, you can use your range tool. I can just highlight and delete. You can do it like that as well. That's a little quicker. Depends on how busy the track is and how much you have to cut out. And again, how much you cut out, like do you cut out between here and here? Yeah, I might cut out between here and here. But anything like between here and here, not so much. You can decide for yourself how crazy you want to get. I want to get most of the major bleed out of there. So once again, I'll come up here with my range tool. Again, and I take the time to go through all of this. This takes time, but this is going to help make your mix have a lot more clarity to it. Trust me. So again, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I'm just showing you an example of how you do this, right? Once I get a bunch of cuts, I'm going to highlight them all. Command B for bounce, and it's going to make it one block of audio just like on the tom tracks. Okay, so things like horns is really great. Pianos and keyboards, if they're not playing all the way through the song. Another big one is vocals, lead vocals and background vocals. Here's an example. Right up to the beginning of the song, there's no singing at all.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now remember, this is a live recording. So it's going to be a lot more bleed, but sometimes with studio recordings, a lot of headphone bleed. If they have open back headphones and a large diaphragm condenser microphone and the singer likes the music really loud when he or she is tracking vocals, headphone bleed. Good idea to get rid of all of that. You can use your blade tool again, or you can use your range tool. Again, you can also use a gate plugin, which again, I'm just not a big fan of gates, me personally. This to me is a lot more accurate and you don't have to fiddle around with that stuff. But the thing you want to be careful about vocal tracks, you want to make sure you don't cut off the beginning of lines where maybe he sings or she sings a little lower.
And that's good.
Like right here. He starts singing right there. So we don't want to,
And that's good, lad.
so we don't want to get rid of that. We want to just go up to that. Okay. And just like on the other tracks, you're going to clean them all up. Then I'm going to highlight them all, bounce it, Command B. One block of audio, lead vocals, background vocals. Once I've got all that done, then I go to the beginnings and the ends of my songs, and I want to make sure that at the very ends, where does the song kind of fade out? Kind of a hard stop. I'm going to highlight all the tracks. I'm going to drag them in a little bit, and I'm going to do a little fade. I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see this. Just going to take this and fade it out. See that? So we have a nice fade off of the song. And again, if that's, you don't want to cut it off abruptly. Something like that. Again, you have to listen to the song and decide how you want your song to end. It depends. Same thing at the beginning of the song, right? If we have any dead space or any banter before the song starts. Oh, I got some things muted here. Let me just turn this back. Okay, so right in the beginning, right there, up until that first hit, we could get rid of all that. So I may bring this up and I'll do a fade on all the tracks. And you see how that's doing all the tracks? Because I held down Shift and I highlighted all the events. Or I could just take my mouse, left click, and I can drag and highlight all the events. You don't have to do each track one at a time. And then once I've done that, I got all this space at the beginning of the song. Then I like to highlight all the tracks. Make sure you have everything highlighted so you don't see like this one here. If I don't do it, got to make sure, zoom out, make sure everything is highlighted. Okay, all the tracks. Then you can zoom out here. I can scroll back and I can just drag these tracks back a little bit to the beginning of the song. Or no, that's just gonna, sorry. I want to pull that up. Move the whole thing back. Okay, so now, so it's right at the beginning of the session. Okay, save. Okay, so once I've done that and I got everything together and all my tracks are clean and all my fades are done, they're in and out, blah, 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 blah. The next thing I would do after that, after I saved it, is I would open up my mixer and I would start my static mix. Before I put any plugins, I would start my static mix. There is, or gain staging, excuse me, gain stage and static mix. Mix Tip Tuesday, go look in the playlist. I've already done a dedicated video on how to do that. So once you get your gain staging and your static mix done, now we're ready to start mixing, okay? So that is kind of how I prep every single session. There's only about 6 or 7 steps, depending on the session that you have and how many tracks you have. Could be more or less time. Normally a session takes me anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour to prep, depending on how many tracks there are, how much headphone bleed, how much cleaning I have to do, how much listening and reorganization of things that I have to do. That's usually about what it takes. And what's great about that is once it's done, it's done. And now you can start getting out of the technical mode, out of the housekeeping mode and the task, you know, the little housekeeping task mode. And now you can switch your brain over to the mixing, the creative, and the engineering mode. And if you do this on every single mix, you will start to have a workflow that really makes sense to you and it will speed up your entire workflow. And again, I urge you to take a look at the mixing template video that I did. Again, it's part of Mix Tip Tuesday. Check the playlist, you'll see it, where some of these things are already done for you. So you're not starting from absolute scratch like we did here. But if you don't know how to do that and you haven't watched that video yet, this is a way to do it for you. So I hope you enjoyed this and I hope it was helpful and shows you how I set up and start every single mix. You can take what you want from this and build it into your workflow. Now, as I said, I want to thank you for watching this entire video. As I said at the beginning, I want to give you some free gifts. So the first thing I want to do for you is if you have not been to homerecordingmadeeasy.com yet and you're new to this channel, or you've been around a while but you've never gone over to the website, go over to the website today. Links are in the description box. Why? Because I want to give you 5 free mixing training courses. Yes, I want to give you 5 free courses so you could take all the Mix Tip Tuesday episodes that you've been seeing every single Tuesday for the last, by this point, the last 6 months, and you can start using those on real world applications across 5 different training courses. So go get your 5 free courses today at homerecordingmadeeasy.com. Now, if you're someone that's already been to Home Recording Made Easy and you already have those courses and you're like, well, now what? I already got them. What are you going to give me? Well, I'm going to give you something as well. I want to give you a coupon code. Coupon code will be on the screen here any second. YouTube 25. YouTube 25 you use at checkout at homerecordingmadeeasy.com. It will take 25% off any one of my training courses. Okay. So YouTube 25, 25% off any training course there. Go check it out. There is courses on recording, mixing, mastering, compression, parallel compression, EQ, right? Recording drums, mixing drums, and an enormous amount of mixing training courses specifically. Go check it out. If you don't have most of the training courses on my website, here's an opportunity to pick them up at 25% off. And you can use that code more than once, by the way. It's not a one-time code. Buy several courses. You can use that code every single time. It'll give you 25% off. So go do that today. Last, but certainly not least, if you really enjoy mixing and you really want to learn the craft of mixing in a non-technical way, check out mixingmadeeasy.net. It is my mixing membership website where we have a community of home recording musicians and aspiring audio engineers who are getting better at the craft of mixing. There's a video right at mixingmadeeasy.net that tells you all about the membership. It is an enormous amount of training for less than 50 cents a day and for a limited time only. Click the link in the description box, and I want to give you an opportunity to try it out for a full year at 40% off the annual membership price. Yes, 40% off. You know what that means? It's less than 40 cents a day for you to have a new song every single month, different genre of music, with a full set of videos each month that shows you how I mix the song from start to finish. You get all the audio files so you can mix with me step by step. Every month we use a different set of mixing concepts and techniques, and every month we use a different set of plugins. So you can take what you want and build your own workflow. Okay? Awesome training. You won't find any more comprehensive mixing training anywhere online. I don't care who it is at that price point. No way, no how. Great stuff. Go check it out. Mixingmadeeasy.net, 40% off. Links are all in the description box. And I want to hear from you now. I want to know below, what do you do to help to start with your mixing prep? What are the things you do that I didn't show you here? Did you find this video helpful? Do you have any little tips and tricks that you can share with me and some of our other members here that are watching these videos? Leave comments below. I want to know what you think. And until the next video and the next Mix Tip Tuesday, I've been Dave with homerecordingmadeeasy.com and mixingmadeeasy.net, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care.